Was it a case of President Moon winning this election or the opposition actually losing it?
Hi, good morning. Yes, again, as you said, yesterday's election turned out to be a landslide victory for the ruling camp, which is Democratic Party. And yesterday's election was quite unique, given the fact that it took place in the middle, virtually in the middle of pandemic in South Korea. The situation is going better and better in Korea, but still we are suffering from the pandemic situation. That said, the election took place quite smoothly and quite efficiently yesterday.
The question, Professor, I was really getting at here, was it a weak opposition? They were skeptical of President Moon's response to the pandemic, and that perhaps didn't cut it for the rest of the population, did it?
Exactly. When the election started about 2 months ago, the landscape seemed to be favorable for the opposition party, which is United Future Party. But over time, it turned out that government is is dealing with the situation effectively and efficiently, and it affected the minds of the general public at the polling booths. So that, I believe, has translated into a landslide victory for the ruling camp. A historic victory for the ruling camp in 24 years.
The thing is, this landslide, as you put it, does free up the president to get legislation through. In your view, does he have the right policies to deal with what's going on the ground there, both societally and economically?
Well, that's a good question. At first, yes, that's right. With a 6% majority in the National Assembly, now he has the President Moon has the momentum, to push ahead with his reform agenda during the remainder of his term. So there's certainly the momentum there. But at the same time, the economy is a big question mark in Korea. Just yesterday, IMF released a report where they say that Korea will register minus 1.2% annual growth at the end of the year, which is the first time in 24 years for the minus growth rate for Korea. So the economic recession is along the horizon. Then the question mark is how the president will take advantage of the momentum in a way that can revive the economy. So I think he will continue on his reform agenda, but I think there will be many changes in the specific economic policies in many sectors of the economy of Korea.
Professor, what kind of changes are you anticipating then? I mean, prior to the election, he was grappling with issues like jobs as well as the political scandals, the chaebols. How far will he address all these issues to maintain the kind of ratings that he has right now, which is about 55%?
Well, yes, there are many issues waiting for the discussion at the National Assembly and inside the administration. For instance, Haslinda, the issue of a minimum wage increase, that topic will be a hallmark issue for the current administration. They will continue with the plan or the agenda, but I think the pace of the increase will slow down going forward. And also, there are a couple of issues that seem to hamper development of new technology in the business sector. So those issues will be handled by the new assembly and by the current administration in a way that gives more business-friendly environment, so to speak, to the Korean industries and businesses for the time being.
Professor Lee, how much confidence do you have in President Moon's government?
Well, I think the people responded with a resounding voice yesterday. So, as many people say, in the situation of emergency or in the situation of rather national emergency, I think that people tend to support the current government because that seems to be a way to ensure stability for the national economy.
When you take a look at the indicators so far, like the one, for instance, among the worst performing currencies in all of Asia, when do you see a recovering seeping through into the economy? Could Korea lead the recovery in Asia?
Well, Haslinda, I think the whole situation is now in quite unclear. I think, as I said, the government will make best efforts to revive the economy, but because of the unique nature of the pandemic, I think it's way different from the previous economic crisis for Korea in 1998 or 2008. But this time, the pandemic crisis is basically shutting down the whole business activity in Korea. So I think it's really difficult for us to expect some real return in the near future. So on the one hand, government and business sectors will make best efforts to rebound the economy, but I think it will take a long, long time for Korea to recover, particularly so because Korea is a export-driven economy, and now with the whole world economy is going down, I think the economic performance, particularly export performance of Korea, will be severely affected by the outside situation. That's Linda.
Professor Lee, with the noise surrounding this pandemic drowning out other very important things, how much talk has there been about what's going on in North Korea at the moment? That's the big unknown at the moment. And what have you been hearing as to what that country has been doing?
Right. As you know, the North Korean issue has been always the most important issue in South Korea, and usually that topic should have dominated any election, including yesterday's election. But again, it turned out that all issues were overshadowed by the pandemic crisis in Korea. So North Korean issue and Korea-Japan diplomatic tension, all other regional political issues were basically outshadowed or washed away by the comprehensive and the unprecedented nature of coronavirus pandemic in Korea. So by all accounts, yesterday's election was very unique in terms of issues posed, in terms of how people responded, in terms of, again, how elections actually were conducted.
Okay, and also, Professor Lee, it's because you've got the incumbent party winning. Does that mean that we have the status quo when it comes to the diplomatic and trade row going on with Japan at the moment, or are there any signs of there being a thaw there?
Well, it's hard to predict, but I think that's a safe assumption for now. So I think basically, on diplomatic front, with respect to China, with respect to North Korea, and with respect to, more importantly, with Japan, the current diplomatic course or policy decisions will stay on the current course. So that seems to be the way for the administration, at least for the time being. So that seems to be the diplomatic maneuvering for the Moon administration until the remainder of his term, which remains now for 2 more years for his presidency.